Syria and Russia warned that the latest accusations about chemical weapons are just a flimsy pretext for a new U.S. strike on Syria. One America's Pearson has the latest and spoke with Senator Richard Black, who says the U.S. is waging an illegal war to overthrow President Assad. We want to warn our viewers here, some of the following footage may be graphic.
Syria is taking a stand against the latest U.S. accusations over alleged chemical weapons use. Syrian government officials say the U.S. threats against carrying out a renewed chemical weapons attack are baseless and are simply a ploy to justify a new strike against Syria. The Syrian Foreign Ministry explained that Washington's allegations were not only misleading, but were, quote, devoid of any truth. But there are some in Washington who don't buy the rhetoric. Senator Richard Black from Virginia has traveled extensively throughout Syria and has even met personally with President Bashar al-Assad. He says the U.S. is deliberately provoking a conflict.
I think we've gotten to the point where we said, hey, look, we have invested 6 years in a terrorist overthrow of the legitimate government of Syria, and the only way that we can avoid defeat is to put U.S. boots on the ground. U.S. and NATO must stage a direct attack in Syria in order to turn the tide of the war.
Senator Black explained that U.S. intelligence officials have spoken off the record, saying the only information they have about a chemical weapons attack is watching Syrian jets move into a hangar. Black pointed out the jets were simply following routine procedures and that there is no way to observe preparations for a chemical weapons attack. That's been supported by reports from Russia, which says it has seen no evidence whatsoever of any chemical weapons operations.
Unfortunately, there are new accusations from Washington against the Syrian government that is allegedly planning a new chemical attack. Yet officials from Washington have refused to confirm these allegations with any facts. And we don't know based on what information they made these conclusions. It seems like a large-scale provocation directed not only against the Syrian government, but also against Russia.
Maria Zakharova said Moscow has already received information that Syrian rebels, many of whom are directly supported by the U.S., have already staged videos to frame Damascus for another chemical weapons attack. According to Moscow's intel, the Syrian towns of Sarakib and Ariha could be the locations for the next so-called attack. Both towns are in the Idlib province and are under rebel control. That staged attack could come soon, as Zakharova says it would derail the next round of Syrian peace talks set to take place next week in the capital of Kazakhstan. But experts like Senator Black say that's exactly what the U.S. is aiming for.
We're staging attacks, blaming it on Syria, with virtually no evidence whatsoever. And then we use that as a pretext to launch an invasion.
Senator Black says that's par for the course, and the U.S. involvement in Syria is just the next step in a long line of occupations and campaigns against countries in the Middle East.
The United States has gone on this long-term tour of aggression where we toppled Libya, we tried to topple Syria, we tried to topple Egypt. We are fighting in Somalia, we're fighting in Yemen, we're fighting in Pakistan and Afghanistan, in ISIS, or rather in Iraq. The U.S. has not yet begun to move our foreign policy away from supporting ISIS, Al-Qaeda, every terrorist group in the Mideast in order to overthrow Syria.
And with U.S. warships moving into position to strike Syria, if President Assad were to carry out a chemical weapons attack, this seems like a particularly poor time to do it. But Washington isn't letting a lack of evidence stand in its way. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov points out that not only has the White House offered no proof for their latest claims, but that U.S. officials aren't interested in investigating their previous accusations of a chemical weapons attack in Khan Sheikhoun.
Once the Syrian government welcomed inspectors, the U.S. said they were ready to support such a trip if the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons was interested. How could the organization established to deal with chemical threats be uninterested in visiting the sites where toxic substances are kept? But strangely, the organization said they could no longer visit the airport, and our American partners suddenly said they didn't see the need to go either.
Former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras agrees, saying no one has bothered to return to Han Che-hun and examine what really happened there. Speaking in an interview with RT News on Thursday, Jatras called the U.S. involvement in Syria a charade that has gone on for far too long. He said the U.S. has dug itself a hole and is struggling to get out, and that further aggression is just showboating to appear tough and effective ahead of President Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin at the G20 summit in Germany. But rather than work against President Putin, many people, like Senator Black, say cooperating with both Damascus and Moscow is the only way to resolve the conflict. Pearson Sharp, One America News.